Hey everyone, just so you know, we had a slight audio issue, so we're using a different audio source for this interview. It kind of sounds like a live interview now, so please do bear with us. It is a really interesting conversation, so let's roll that intro.
There's loads of people that come to our shows and leave with so many new friends, or they come to our shows and then find a member of our staff and be like, oh my god, this is insane, I need to propose to my girlfriend tonight. You have no idea how many proposals we've had, the proposal requests we have, I'm sure.
Welcome to Creative Catalyst, the show that will help inspire you through conversation with creative people telling their stories and how it shaped their career. I'm your host, Chris Campbell, and today's guest is a pivotal figure in the immersive theatre and experiential world and has delivered a series of unparalleled experiences in his time as senior producer for Secret Cinema. Working at the forefront of Secret Cinema Presents, he has recreated iconic worlds such as 28 Days Later, Moulin Rouge and Blade Runner. Most recently, he's been overseeing the launch of the brand's first international production as producer for Secret Cinema Presents Casino Royale, which, after great critical and commercial success and an attendance of 110,000, moved to Shanghai. His name is Andrea Moccia. In this episode, we cover what he believes to be key attributes to a successful producer, experiences that drive him to create, and moments he will never forget working for Secret Cinema. If you want to find him on social media, he is Andrea Moccia on Instagram and Twitter, and search secret_cinema for their social medias. Andrea Moccia, you have a quote that you brought with you today.
I do.
What is that quote?
So it's a quote from Rilke, and it goes, "I want to be with those who know secret things or else alone." So that's the quote I brought today.
And why do you like that quote? Why do you gravitate towards it?
So it's a quote that's very close to me and very close to my professional development. Fabian, who is the founder and creator of Secret Cinema, whenever he puts a creative plan together, which is basically the treatment for a show, it's the essence of a show, it's the plan, he will seek inspiration from a quote or a particular scene of a film or a music video, and that sort of forms the basis of what the show was. And so one of my favorite productions so far was Secret Cinema Presents Laura Marling, where we took Laura Marling's album Once I Was an Eagle and we transformed it into a visual environment. And Fabian came up with this beautiful concept of Laura being this sort of ghostly figure that haunted this hotel, and then it ended in a beautiful acoustic concert from Laura. And so this was the quote at the basis of the show and the inspiration behind the show. But obviously, talking about secrets and Secret Cinema, there's also
naturally
naturally fits. But also, I do believe that the people who know secret things or who are slightly mad or slightly weird are the most interesting people. So that's what I see in that quote.
I think, especially with like creativity, a lot of the most creative people are the ones who are just so outside the box that it might be really hard to communicate with them. Mm-hmm. But actually, their ideas, if you do really take that time, are something you've never seen before,
exactly,
and never heard before.
Exactly.
So I think that's cool. And you are, like you were saying, you are part of Secret Cinema,
correct,
as the producer at the moment. Did you want to explain to people who maybe don't know about what a producer role is, or people who do, but kind of what you do as a producer?
Yeah,
and maybe some misconceptions as well, if there's anything there.
Definitely. The most common misconception about being a producer is, and the question I always get is, so you pay for stuff? And I'm like, no, I'm really broke.
I wish I could pay for stuff.
Exactly.
That'd be a great time. But
no, I mean, I'll give you my card, but won't get you.
Yeah, it's probably going to get bounced before we try and get a forklift in here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But effectively, what my role is at Secret Cinema is I am in charge of the delivery of projects, of shows. I work with the creative team very closely in developing the concepts of the show and sort of going from concept to physical build and physical environment. I budget the show, so I'll put together a budget which then which basically has got every single cost item and that sort of stuff. And then I will hire and manage a team. So I will go out and look for lighting designers, costume designers, special effects people, actors, and essentially I'm in charge of making sure that the show is delivered on budget, on time, and to the creative standards that we've set ourselves. And it usually goes quite well.
Yeah. Touching wood.
Yeah.
I've done well so far.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's my role, yeah.
And did you expect that this was this being a producer something you always thought you wanted to do, or did it kind of come out of nowhere?
It sort of came out of nowhere. It was a beautiful set of circumstances that brought me to being a producer. But I studied business in university, and so that really gave me a lot of tools and skills, and that I still use on a daily basis in my job. But I was always passionate. I was always very passionate about the creative industry and theatre and performing arts and film, and so it was a sort of a natural fit for me. But it wasn't something I went out looking for. I had been to a few of the shows. In particular, I went to Shawshank Redemption, which was a fantastic production. It was a tunnel production, in which meant that we didn't tell you what film you were going to see. So you knew nothing about it. You knew the location that you were going to and who you were. I was told to wear sort of an outfit as if I was going to court, leggings and an undershirt.
But you had no idea what was
Shawshank Redemption. No idea what I was getting myself into. Really. It was one of the first shows that I've ever been. So I turned up, and it was really freezing, it was snowing, and I turned up at this library, Bethnal Green, which had been dressed to look like a courtroom. A judge then called my name, and I was sentenced to a crime that I hadn't committed. And at that point, two very tall, very big policemen grabbed me and brought me downstairs in this courtyard where they slammed me against the wall and started shouting at me and sort of harassing me. Then this blacked out van arrived and pulled over, and you got loaded into the van. The van would leave, and as I said, it was snowing, and these vans were like 1930s vans, really old van.
Yeah.
So they kept on breaking down.
Oh, no.
So when I went, it actually broke down, so I had to get it off and sort of walk in the snow, which made the whole thing even more real.
Wow, they planned all of this.
Wow.
The breaking down of the van, and they all seem so real. And
Special effects are amazing.
Yeah. Where's the snow coming from? It's incredible.
So and then we got put back onto another van, and then we arrived at the school where there were already audience members inside who were shouting at you, "New fish, new fish, new fish," and you got taken through this journey where you watched a lot of scenes happening, and you arrived in the sports hall. And the sports hall was in the sports hall there was the warden of the prison, and he would give you a speech, and then you got told you to undress, and then you got put in a prison uniform. Now, I didn't follow the dress code to quite the way that I should have followed it. So I didn't wear an undershirt.
Okay.
So what happened is that they picked me out of the crowd because I was the only idiot not wearing what was
the dress code.
It's the dress code. I got quite a big tattoo on my back, so I'm quite easy to spot. And this policeman came up and brought me on top of the stairs and made me stand in front of the stairs. And every single audience member that was with me had to go past me before going to their cell, and I had to say good luck. And that just freaked me out. It was really, really terrifying. First of all, you're put in the spot, and then everyone's saying good luck, and you don't know what you're getting into, you don't know where you are, what you're doing. So it was really cool, got a chilling effect.
Yeah.
But after this, you got taken to a cell where you got locked in, and inside the cell there were already actors that sort of made you feel as if you were really in prison. And I think the actor that was with me was an arsonist. And then the lights went off. And then when the lights went off, your day as an inmate started. So you could do various different activities. You could go and make candles, or you could go and do the laundry or whatever. And there were actually people that were sleeping there as well. So
they were staying over?
They were staying over, yeah. I'm sure things got wild on those
nights. Because I heard that they had people stay over in the jail cell in Shawshank, I was like, no, they didn't. Like, how could you even plan that? But it totally happened.
Totally happened, and it was great. Basically, after you got after you did all these activities, a big scene happened in which one of the inmates was killed. He was shot in the courtyard, and you then got taken to the screening room where the screening started, and I just left the event feeling so buzzed and so energized that I thought to myself, these guys are absolutely insane, and I need to find a way to work for them.
Yeah.
So then that's when I sort of reached out and started looking for jobs there, and It's great.
It's crazy.
It's absolutely great.
And then you started off with an internship, didn't you? Oh, before we go any further, do you want to briefly explain what Secret Cinema is to anyone who hasn't heard of Secret Cinema? Because I was so blown away that when I chat to people, they're like, "No, I don't know." And it's like, "But you live in London. Like, how do you not know about this? Like, do you not see the posters? James Bond? I mean, it's but yeah, do you want to briefly explain what Secret Cinema is about?"
So Secret Cinema started 11 years ago, and it was founded by Fabien Rigaud. And Fabien always had this, first of all, he's a creative genius, but he always had a passion for films in particular, and in particular short film. So the way it started was, it actually started from another company called Future Shorts, which is an independent short film festival that happens in over 100 cities around the world. And the idea with that is that Future Shorts curates a selection of short films in a program, and then independent organizers around the world reach out to us. We give them the program, we give them marketing assets, and then we sort of give them a little bit of a guide to sort of how to put on a short film screen, and they then do it themselves, totally independent from Future Shorts sort of HQ. But that started as how do we get people to see all these beautiful art forms, beautiful products, talking about short films that don't really have a life outside of the festival circuits, or sort of they don't really have an audience. So Fabien came up with this idea of fusing short film with art, music, performance, and then after that, Secret Cinema sort of spawned out of that. And what we do at Secret Cinema is we create immersive interactive experiences based on films or other sort of pieces of culture or art. We take over very large abandoned buildings and spaces, and then we choose a film and we rebuild the whole set and story of the film. Then audience members buy a ticket, they get given a character, they get told how to dress, and they get to live through the story of the film and play with us. It's very important. The element of play is a really, really important thing. What we do is we bring you back to those days in which you felt free to act a little bit silly or sort of step out of your regular 9-to-5 self. So then people buy a ticket, they get given a character, they get told to dress, and then the first 3 to 4 hours you are exploring all the sets, you're doing missions, you're talking to actors, to the cast. You can eat, drink, party. There's really whatever you want. There's whatever you want. And then after that, you sit down and you watch the film. But it's not your regular film screening in the sense that we'll bring scenes to life even during the film screening. So for Moulin Rouge, when Satine falls from the trapeze because for her disease, there's Satine above your head falling from a trapeze. Or in Back to the Future, when the DeLorean came out of the truck, the DeLorean would come out of the stage and whiz around you at 88 miles an hour. So it's it's really sort of the highest celebration of a film that you can think of. We've got the privilege of working with these beautiful IPs and titles that people feel really passionate about, you know. A couple of years ago we did Blade Runner. Think about first of all, the legacy of Blade Runner in terms of film aesthetics. It's film really that has set the bar for what a sci-fi film should be, and has introduced sort of sci-fi noir. Anyways, but think about how many people cherish that film and how many people love that film, and we get the chance to take that and create our own world, create our own stories, create our own characters, add details into it that people might not that might not even be in film. We don't recreate the film verbatim, you know. We expand out of the confines of the screen, and
you kind of explore the world that is within that film.
Correct. And yeah, so that's in essence that is it. I mean, my disclaimer is that until you really go to a Secret Cinema event, it's very, very difficult for you to understand what it actually is. It can be quite overwhelming. But most people leave feeling like they've had one of their best nights in their life, and that's really important.
I think it's just harking back to you're creating a space for people to, like you're saying, play, but in a way where you can have Netflix and you can have access to all this stuff, but having something physically in front of you where you've got people and you're within that experience is something that you just can never recreate anywhere else. I mean, that's why live gigs are still always going to be a thing, because people love going to see something live and actually experiencing that as a group.
Exactly. I think you've hit the nail on the head. We are sort of the anti. We take screens. We want to make sure that you have any meaning outside the screens, and obviously you see the film, but we don't want you to be on your phone. We don't want you to sort of lose yourself online. We want you to come to our shows and make real, genuine memories and real, genuine connections. So one thing that we do is we take people's phones off, and that has a sort of two-way effect. First of all, you're free from the worries of being filmed or photographed and ending up on social media, acting maybe silly or a bit drunk. So you really let let loose. Some people a little bit too much.
I was going to say, like, some people will totally lose it and they
totally lose it. I mean, we'll get into that later if you want. Yeah. But I can definitely share.
I've got many a story.
No, yeah. So yeah, we take your phones off, and the other thing is, all of a sudden, you don't have that sort of line of safety blanket where you're standing at a bar, you can't just pick up your phone and check Twitter and wait, And so what do? You start talking to the person next to you, and you make a connection, and that is really, really beautiful. There's loads of people that come to our shows and leave with so many new friends, or they come to our shows and then find a member of our staff and be like, "Oh my God, this is insane! I need to propose to my girlfriend tonight." You have no idea how many proposals we've had, proposal requests we have at our shows. Yeah. Especially on Back to the Future was one where we constantly got requested for. To organize these impromptu proposals, and I always drive my team crazy because I want to make them happen, right? But because we have a disruption in the show, exactly.
Get back to the experiences. Okay.
Actually, we had a proposal in China as well. So we just did Bond in China, and it was very cute. And some people read a set, which was Venice, and had this beautiful fountain square, and a couple of people came up to us, and or the guy emailed us before and was like, "I really want to propose on this night," so we orchestrated this little thing.
That's
so it was beautiful.
You're totally giving people ideas now, so now they're like, okay, I need to propose, I'm going to go to the secret cinema, and then it's...
Exactly. I mean, Fabian once, on Moulin Rouge, which obviously was a very, very fun, very sexy show.
Has that vibe, yeah.
Yeah. Fabian had gone to do an interview on, I think it was with Annie Graz, on the radio anyways. And during the interview, he basically said that if you want to get married, come get married at Secret Cinema. And he gave out my email address. So all of a sudden I got inundated by requests. By requests of people that wanted to get married at Secret Cinema. But obviously we don't have a marriage license. And, I'm certainly not ordained to.
I do. As much as I want to have that, I just don't have that.
Exactly. So unfortunately it didn't happen.
Oh, that's so good. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, but as you were saying, I think live experiences are fundamental. I think I'm someone who I'd much rather go to a concert than spend an evening watching YouTube or playing on my phone or whatever. I'm very much about the real experiences. I'm very much about real life. And I can tell you, there's no feeling like sitting in a field with 5,000 other people who. So we've got Dirty Dancing coming up this summer, and we've done it a couple of times before. It's one of the most loved shows. It's also one of the most loved films out there. Yeah. There's nothing like hearing 5,000 women screaming, "Nobody puts baby in the corner" at the same time.
Yeah.
It just gives you shivers, this sort of thing. And I think there's nothing like being in a crowd and being there for the same purpose, sharing the same love, and that's why concerts are so unbelievable. And I hope that with the rise of technologies like VR and AR, that we don't move away from the live element as well.
You hope they both coexist, but it's not one takes over the other.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think from the experiences I've had going to Secret Cinema, I don't think it's ever gonna go. My hope, I would say.
My hope.
yeah. As I work there, mine too. But would you say, because your journey through Secret Cinema to the point where you're now producing is a really interesting one. When you first reached out for that internship, what were you thinking? What was that process like? If someone was interested in different ways of getting in to not just Secret Cinema, but just productions in general, like how did you go about that?
I was incredibly lucky because I knew someone that worked at Secret Cinema, so I reached out to them and tried to get an in. And I think it's something that anyone can do right now, though. Even though you might not know someone, we our generation that is probably the most connected ever. We've got So many tools at our disposal to help us reach out to people, to help us get in with organizations that we might want to work with. Especially here in London, like there's so many people that you can contact, brilliant creative, brilliant producers, brilliant, that you can just contact via Instagram, and people will respond. So I think in general, try and use the tools at your disposal if you're interested in a career in the arts industry. Showcase your talents, get it in. But then once you get it in, you be prepared to work hard. It's a very competitive environment that we are in. We're very lucky to be in this environment.
Yeah.
But it is a little bit survival of the fittest.
Whichever one lasts.
Yeah. But in terms of what I expected the role to be honest with you, I just sort of went into it with brilliant naivety, and I wasn't really expecting much. It was my first job, so I didn't have any frame of reference or anything. And I ended up doing all sorts of things. From working with the cast and doing castings and the rehearsal and making popcorn and putting signs up on toilets, like you name it, I've done it. But what that has given me is a really good understanding of sort of all of the jobs going from the bottom up and the importance of everyone that comes together to make a show at Secret Cinema. I couldn't do my job if the cleaners weren't doing their job. I couldn't do my job if the front of house usher wasn't doing their job. They're just as important as our cast. They're the people who are working every night, interacting with they've got a very audience-facing role because all of our staff goes through rehearsals and training. Everyone's in character, so there will never be an instance in one of our shows where you go up to someone and say, for example, if anyone asks, if you're going to Moulin Rouge and anyone asks you when does the film start, the staff know to say, what do you mean film? Because cinema hasn't been invented yet, so they won't even.
They're all within that space.
They're all within the world. So I'm terribly grateful for the people that we have working behind Secret Cinema. It's a brilliant team. It's a community that has grown and come together, and others people that have worked on a number of shows with us who maybe started off as a front of house member and are part of our cast, or likewise they were part of our cast and are directing shows. There are real opportunities for growth within an organization. That's something that I'm very proud of. But yeah, so I did a little bit of everything. And then Fabian, who I cannot be more grateful to, he really took me under his wing, and I was very, very lucky to be able to strike that relationship with him. He's an absolute genius, and I wouldn't be here without him. First of all, because he started the company, but secondly, because he gave me so many opportunities. I produced my first show when I was 22, 23, and it was a sort of multi-million-pound production. To be given that trust so young, there's not many other organizations that would do that. So I really have to thank him from the bottom of my heart. But Fabian then came up to me and said, I was at uni at the time. I was sort of juggling between doing exams and writing my dissertation and the internship at Secret Cinema. And Fabian came up to me and said, look, if you want to stay here and if you want a job here, as long as you don't go back to university, so I didn't do my master's, I will give you a job. And so that's where my journey really started with Secret Cinema. I started off as a production assistant, and my roles within that were really varied. But I think the most useful things that I used to do, that was part of sort of my remit, was taking minutes in meetings and making sure that we had a log and kept track of everything that we're doing. And so that, again, gave me a really thorough understanding of the processes behind Secret Cinema, what it takes to run a show like this. But also I was privy to conversations which maybe were a little bit above my pay grade, but at the same time they provided really useful tips and even just like learn how to act in a meeting, or just learn how to relate to other people that work with you in a team. And yeah, it was brilliant.
That's awesome. And it's all of those experiences that you now draw upon with the role you do now.
All the time. And then there were the more outlandish things that we did as well. Like the good thing about Secret Cinema is no 2 days are the same. Every day is different, and we've done all sorts of brilliant, wonderful things. We've, for example, for Star Wars, so whenever you come to Secret Cinema, there's always a web experience, there's always a digital experience, which we call pre-narrative, which is the narrative before you actually come to the show.
So it builds the world before you even move into it.
Exactly. It gives you the tools of, it gives the audience members the tools to then come to our shows. And one of the things that we created was when we were working with Star Wars was this campaign called Rebel X. And anyone who bought a ticket to Secret Cinema, we told them that they were a refugee stationed on Earth and that they had to go back to Alderaan, which was their home planet. We were doing this in collaboration with the Refugee Council, which is a beautiful organization that works with refugees. And so in order to sort of call people, we created this treasure hunt of Rebel X projections around London, which ended up in a rave at Corsica Studios, and the people who did attend the rave got free tickets to the show.
Nice.
Because they followed all the clues that led them to the rave, which quite a bit of effort. But one of the things we did was we projected Rebel X onto, and I might get arrested after this. So if I do, totally my fault.
I won't feel bad. No, it's...
But one of the things we did was project Rebel X onto the Houses of Parliament. So I remember like hiding with this projector sort of across the river from the Houses of Parliament.
Yeah.
I was so terrified.
Yeah.
But it was
what happens if they catch me?
Yeah, exactly. So that was one of the weird things that we got to do. But yeah, one of my first days, probably actually this might have been my first or second day at Secret Cinema. We did a show around Brazil by Terry Gilliam. A fantastic film, which if you haven't seen it, go see it. And the show was in Croydon, in a 13-floor building where we had these 6 lifts that kept on breaking down. It was the bane of our lives. And I think on my second day at Secret Cinema, I got into this lift, and next to me there's Fabian, who's the founder, and Terry Gilliam, and Terry's daughter, Holly. And the lift sort of broke down, and I remember being so terrified and thinking, what have I got myself into? Like, stuck in a lift with Terry Gilliam?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
What is happening right now?
I sometimes have to pinch myself and just check that.
This is all real.
This is all real, yeah.
Yeah. Like moving on to where you are now with your producing, is there any misconceptions that you think, just from your experiences, you want to like clear up?
I think because the role of the producer is so varied. Sorry, my English is awful. I tend to mumble a lot.
That's
so
okay.
if I'm,
You're doing great.
Because it's so varied, there isn't really a definition of what a producer is out there. Effectively, what we are, we're problem solvers. We're the people ripping our hair out at 4 a.m. because everything's gone wrong and we need to fix it. So I think that's what I've sort of found to be the common denominator amongst producers in different industries. And we actually did a talk last year with 3 different producers who worked in different sectors of the industry, and we were trying to explain what the role of a producer was and sort of find similarities within us. And everyone had a slightly different remit depending on what they were working on.
Yeah.
But the one common denominator that I found is we're problem solvers at heart, and you need to have that set in your ways, I think, and not freak out when something happens, and be ready to plan, but be ready to change your plans.
Yeah.
That's really, really important. Don't just because you have a plan, don't stick to it, even if it results in...
Even if you know that it's not going to...
Exactly.
Yeah, I think fluidity is a very interesting concept.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Plan, but don't over-plan. That's what I think.
And do you think with planning and not over-planning, that's something that you've learnt over time?
Definitely.
What else would you say has been a big learn for you since becoming a producer, or just your whole journey through Secret Cinema specifically?
I think one thing that I'm very aware of is what I don't know. So always know what you don't know. Something that I say very often, because you can't be expected to know everything. And actually, when you're someone sort of in a managerial position, however you want to call it, there's no way you can know 100% of everything that you're doing. You know, you want to know sort of 40 to 70%.
Yeah.
And stuff that you don't know, make sure you hire people that do know. Make sure that they really know their shit. And so I surround myself with all these brilliant, fantastic technical HODs or creatives and graphic designers. I surround myself basically by I surround myself with really, really talented people, and I take the credit for it.
It's on me. It's on me.
No.
Get back in the back door.
No, it's a team effort, really. Everything that we do, we couldn't do everything without everyone working on this show. So I think where you don't know something, make sure that you have the people that know in your team.
I think that's such an important thing for just in general, if you want to be in the creative industry, is you're not going to be proficient in everything, and actually having the foresight to go, okay, let's build a community around me, or community together where we're all covering all bases.
Exactly.
And I think it's something I've really learned since coming to London is really bridging out and getting to know people who are so talented that you're like, I just don't have the vision for that. But you seem to, so we're going to be friends.
Exactly.
So you can try and like show me your vision, and I can be on board with it.
Exactly.
But that in like every aspect, from musicians to photographers to artists to graphics designers, it's building that team around you.
Yeah, and then the most successful artists get there because of the team that they've got around them. It's not just the artists; it's the producers, it's the art directors, it's the creative directors that work with them on tours, videos, songs. It's very uncommon that it's a one-man band, or at least when you get to a certain level, you need that level of support, just not to drive you mad, I think.
Do you think that through your time you figured a balance between what should be something that you're doing and what should be something that someone else does? How do you find workload wise? What have you learned through your experiences?
I learned that it's very, very difficult to delegate, but it's fundamental that you do. I've got a couple of brilliant people in my team that I work with, and we've developed a relationship with. Finally, after like a few years and lots of stubbornness from my part, I finally trust them to take on more and more tasks. So I think delegating is really important. I think you don't. Especially when you're young and you're growing up and you starting a new job, you sort of feel like you need to do everything, and that's what will show other people how your worth. Actually, focus on doing a few things really well, and you'll impress people a lot more. Don't try to spread yourself too thin. And also, one thing that I think is important when starting is about making sure that you do find a work-life balance, and making sure that you do put yourself and your mental health and your physical health before the work. That's something that I definitely learned through time. Certainly when I started, I was very often put my work before myself, and I think in the long term it's not sustainable. So make sure that you are able to find time to be a human outside of work, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really important, and it's something that is particularly relevant in the creative industry. And it's when you're creative, you're putting your soul, you're putting your mind on a table for everyone to judge. So the pressure is really, really high. So I think take care of yourself is a piece of advice that I would say to anyone. And yeah,
I think it's really interesting because when you look at creatives, sometimes you can be so wrapped up in what you're doing and you love it so much that you don't even realize that every single moment you're awake, you're working on it.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be the huge detriment. And I remember a guy I used to be really good friends with who did videography at his work, and he got so into it that one day he like nearly had a heart attack.
Yeah.
And he just remembers it was like midway through recording, and suddenly he was just sat on his seat going, I think I'm having a heart attack. It was midway through filming, so he didn't say anything. And then it was at the end of that they went, yeah, actually you need to take like 4 weeks off and just recover.
Yeah.
And it's because he was just plowing everything into it, because it's just finding that balance and taking that step back and actually assessing, okay, what does my day look like, and where are the moments for me?
Exactly.
Because it's in those moments that then when you go back, you can have that spark and you can be that creative person.
Exactly. And it's an exhausting line of work as well, the entertainment industry is so varied. There's so many different jobs in it, but I think it's a problem that's endemic within the industry. I was reading a brilliant article about mental health in the touring events and touring concert industry, and they give this really, really sad statistic about the suicide rate within roadies. So people work on tours, these people work really long hours. They will often work overnight and then they travel, and then the pay isn't very good. And so what happens is the suicide rate is 3 times higher than national average. We put on beautiful events, fantastic experiences for our audience, but we sometimes really neglect the people that are building these shows and that are working on these shows. And I think it's a problem that the industry needs to come to terms with quite quickly. Unions help, because obviously if you're working in a unionized environment, and you are subject to, you make sure they give people breaks and that sort of stuff, but there's definitely not enough being done on that side.
How do you find you try and use that and walk that line with secret cinema?
There are periods in which I find it very difficult to find work-life balance. When it comes to like tech week, you are working long hours and there's no two ways around that. It's all about my team. We're getting to the point where, if I'm doing a late night shift, I've got someone else coming in the morning, and I make sure that I get an 11-hour overnight break or something like that. But it's up to me to self-police, and sometimes because as you said, you're so involved in what you're doing, and it becomes your world, and it's very difficult to take a step back. I found that running really helped. That's something that I've taken up on. I don't do it as much as I would like to. Yeah. My friends watching this will be mocking me.
Well, he doesn't run. That one time he did it on Wii Sport at home.
Exactly. But finding sort of a physical outlet for you, something physical to do that, to vent, and sort of free your mind is really helpful as well.
I think as soon as you start getting into that rhythm with something like a run, it just kind of clears your mind, because you just are just focusing on your breath and your physical movements. Yeah. So I think I find a lot of people run. Yeah. Is there anything else that you do where you find that that's a way of detaching?
I read.
You read?
I read a lot. I love reading. I tend to have 2 books on the go. Usually it's a fiction book that I tend to read at night, and then during the day I read the non-fiction. But that's something that I've always really loved. I remember as a kid, I was the kid with the torch underneath the bed sheets.
No way.
That was me.
Are there any books that you think have really shaped who you are, or any books you've read where you're like, wow, that's really interesting?
Well, sort of from a fiction point of view, one book that I really feel close to me is Novecento, by Alessandro Baricco, which is an Italian author, which is then made into a film, 900, The Legend of... Anyways. It's a monologue by this guy who was born and lived on a boat and never set off the boat. And it's a ship that goes between Europe and America, and it's a beautiful story and tells about... Anyways, that's something that I love and I would recommend anyone to read. It's an old one because it's a monologue, so it's not just another dialogue or anything like that, but the imagery that they use in it is absolutely wonderful. And then in terms of non-fiction, off the top of my head, there isn't one book that I would pinpoint and say this is the book that shaped me. But at the moment, I'm reading a Novelist by John Loach, which talks about sort of how the human race will cease to exist in the coming years, and it will be replaced by sort of AI and technology and that sort of stuff. I found that really interesting.
I think I have a book here actually, which
Show and tell something.
Who Moved My Cheese?
Oh wow! Okay.
This is incredible, and now that I brought it out, I realised that the person who gave it to me to borrow, I've actually had this for like 5 months, and I read it within the first month, and I just haven't given it back. But I need to, and if they're listening to this, I'm so sorry, Kat, I will give this back, I promise.
So who did move your cheese?
So Who Moved My Cheese? This is exactly what, when you were saying, put that back now.
Yeah.
You know when you were saying earlier about how, as a producer, you have to be like fluid, because you can have an idea and then it's being able to work to the next thing.
Yeah.
Who Moved My Cheese is one of the most popular working books out there pretty much, but it's just all about how you can keep going to the initial cheese, but if someone moves it and you keep going to that place thinking that it will be back at some point, actually changing your ways and searching for a new style and a new thing can actually be really healthy. And in the long run, it means that you can be relaxed and you can constantly be evolving, because that's what you got to do. You can't, being stale is really detrimental to the future of your career.
Oh yeah. I mean, we live in a society that moves 5,000 miles a second, you know, like news from a minute ago is updated now. Like you can't, there's no way that anyone who wants to make it right now can be set in one way. You need to be dynamic. You need to respond to changes in culture. You need to respond to changes in demographic. You know, we're a generation that we're experiencing massive changes in terms of culture because of migration, because of, you know, all these third generation kids, and we need to embrace that. I mean, I think diversity within the industry is what will make the success of the industry. And I think it's not just something that people should sort of check a box into the diversity. You know, get the sort of youngest, coolest people to work for you, because they're the ones that will shape culture moving forward. You know, then not the 50-year-old black man saying,
telling the same thing exactly said for the last. I think it's so fascinating. When I was one of my friends, Junior, who's a screenwriter, he's had some really nice success with his stories he's written, but they're all just his perspective, and it's because no one's had that perspective before, because it's like in Hollywood it could be quite stale at the moment with the writers are all the same, but actually at the moment it's that exciting moment where it is starting to pick up with female writers, and like non-white writers are getting their voices heard, and they're telling stories people haven't heard before because they're telling their own story.
Exactly. And
it's an amazing series on Apple TV Plus, which is called Little America. I'm like eight episodes in, and it's just 30-minute stories about an immigrant in America and like their journey. And it's just fascinating to hear these. And half of them are made by the people who actually, it is their story. Yeah. It was just so cool.
I mean, that's sort of genuine creativity, you know. It's like creativity that is not forced, that is not created through algorithms and data, but it's actually stories that are worth being told. I think that's what I'm really passionate about. It's not the sort of machine that Hollywood has become.
Formulaic.
It's really formulaic. Yeah. It's quite stale. I think if you tell the stories, if you tell people stories, that's the most interesting form of narrative for me.
Yeah, I think it's awesome, and I definitely think with the wake of YouTube, you can create your own story. If someone wants to get experience, and if someone wants to create something, like you can video something on your phone, and you can put that up on YouTube, and technically you've made a short film.
100%.
And it's you telling your story, and if people really appreciate that, they will latch on and they will tell their friends.
Yeah, I mean, we do, as part of CSNO, we run a very extensive community engagement program. And one of the things that we do is we run workshops with kids from local schools.
Oh, what was the name of this? I think I was reading about this earlier today.
The Secret Youth.
Secret Youth, yeah. Please explain this. Yeah, it's really cool.
I mean, it's very difficult to explain because it doesn't have one entity. We do various different things. From free events for school kids. So we'll put on a CSNO show. For example, if we've got James Bond on 1 or 2 days, we'll invite hundreds of kids from schools, and they get to do the show as well, which is fantastic because the kids just go insane.
They're freaking out.
The reaction is beautiful, and they play really hard. So for Bond, for example, we created, the adults took them 2 hours to complete the mission. Kids did in 20 minutes.
They could pick up all of the little signals. Yeah, that's awesome.
And then one thing that we do is we run workshops with them. And one of the things that I really want to get across to them when running these workshops is that there are so many jobs available for you within the creative industry, and that you don't necessarily need to be a doctor or a policeman or a fireman. There are so many things that you can do within the creative industry, and it is up to you to not up to you, sorry, but you as I was saying before, use the tools that you've got to get in the industry. It's so easy if you've got a passion for fashion, start like an Instagram account about fashion, and that's your way into the industry. That's how all the big influencers and fashion bloggers, that's how they started, just by picking up the phone and taking a picture. And kids nowadays can do that very, very easily. They've got, and sometimes it's really sad because you see that through circumstances to do with, income and lack of social spaces and community spaces. You
lack of access, yeah.
Lack of access. You see that these kids, like, they live in London, but they've never been to a theatre, or they've never been to a museum, or they've, and it's really sad, really, really sad to see. So, I just want to make sure that they know that there's stuff out there that they can access really easily, and it's a really important message that we try to get across during the workshops. Yeah. But then Secret Youth can take on a number of different forms. So one thing that we did was, not the last general election, the one before it, we organised a Secret Youth screening of I, Daniel Blake, which is a wonderful kind of Loach film that if you haven't seen, you have to go see. And it talks about the story of this man, sort of in his later stage of life, who has had a heart attack. And because he's had this heart attack, he's lost his job. So he ends up on benefits. However, in order for him to get his pay by the government, he needs to prove that he's actively looking for a job. But nobody will hire him because he's had a heart attack and he's got like a precarious health condition. Yeah. So he gets sort of stuck into this loop of senseless job hunting, and in the end, I won't spoil it, but the ending is brilliant, very sad. But go see it. But we really wanted to show this film to as many people as possible because we thought that it was a real vivid portrait of what austerity has caused in communities, and we screened it for free at Proxy for kids between 16 and 21. And so that's sort of just an example of something else that we thought. It was a brilliant event. Like, we had amazing speakers. Goldie was there to speak, and Loach came. We had Milton from Savages doing a speech. We have got this brilliant picture in the change room of Ken Loach and Goldie meeting, and they're like shaking hands. And Goldie's the biggest fan of Ken Loach.
No way.
And yeah, it was beautiful. It was really fantastic event, and I really think we opened up people's eyes a little bit.
Yeah. And that's kind of what the power of what I love is that you're doing this commercial, you're having this commercial success where people are like, there's this massive cult following for Secret Cinema, and it's just like people go to every single one. That's also being able to fund and create the space for you to be able to go and help youth and help them open their eyes and see that there are different possibilities. 100%. And it's not just like 5 prescribed jobs you can have anything you want if you work hard and find the right people to help you there. Yeah. I think that's something else I've really learned is that it's not like you were saying, it's not down to you with regards to you have to make it happen for yourself. You have to do every single bit. Yeah. It's like it's down to you to find the people that can help you get to that position. But then when you're in that position, you're the one who will then be able to turn back. Mm-hmm. Like the last podcast, which is just launched, is with Rosie Jones. Yeah. And she was saying like she had a lot of people help her to where she is now. And now she's turning back and she's going, okay, who can I help get to where I am? Because it's that help which has got me here. You got to give back to the community. I think we've got a responsibility to be better than previous generations, to be kind and to help each other. I think we have moved away so much from sort of 90s mentality, 90s chauvinistic, and sort of we need to be more kind as people, I think, in general, and giving back is the beginning of it. I think one thing which is brilliant to see is, and I keep on going back to the team because really the people that I work with are what make this special. But within our team, we're all sort of activists, and we all feel very passionate about certain causes. And so we use Secret Cinema as a tool to make sure that we affect positive change. We did Secrets. We had this... Fabian often wakes up and, if there's something which he feels particularly passionate about or particularly keen on shining a light over, he will call us up and be like, by the way, tomorrow you are doing an event for this and that, and you're going to do it in 33 different cities and all that sort of stuff. And it happened. We managed to pull out of events in 24 hours in like multiple cities around the world. But in particular, the one that I want to talk about is Secret Protest, which we did we did in London and Calais.
And what we did was a screening for people living in the refugee camp in Calais. So about 1,000 refugees showed up. And it was at the peak of the sort of refugee crisis in Europe, with lots of people trying to enter England and borders. And so I was actually in LA. I was trying to launch the Secret Cinema office in LA, so about 4 years ago, I think. And which failed miserably, but we're hoping to launch this year in the no, we're going to launch this year in the US.
Because you're having good experiences in China right now.
Exactly.
So it's now looking at what other countries to
launch. The US makes sense for us, you know.
Yeah,
but
of course.
I was in LA trying to launch the
first attempt of Secret Cinema LA.
And I had gone to Burning Man, and it was a research trip to Burning Man. I managed to get to pay for it.
Oh, snap.
Very, very important for me to go out there and meet creatives in California, you know.
Sculptors and all of that.
Yeah, it's a massive community, so yeah, absolutely. But I left Burning Man, and I was sort of driving back to LA, and family calls me up, and he's like, by the way, you're moving back to London tomorrow. I was like, okay. So I arrive home, like, pack all my stuff, say goodbye to friends, hop on a flight, and I land at Heathrow about 8 a.m. Go straight from Heathrow to the office. I arrive in the office, and family's like, have you got your passport with you? And I'm like, yeah. What's up? We're going to Calais tonight, and we're going to do a screening for 1,000 people in a refugee camp, so come with me. So we hopped on a train, and then we went to Calais. We brought the second biggest blow-up screen in Europe, and we brought with us this brilliant rapper called African Boy. And so we did a little, the day was riddled with setbacks, like the screen got stuck. There was a fire at the port of Calais, so the screen got stuck at the port of Calais. Nobody knew where it was. We couldn't get in touch with the driver. And then once the screening was over, we couldn't get away from the camp, so we had to be smuggled out. Anyways, it was an adventure. But we screened this Bollywood film for about 1,000 people, and there was such a sense of joy and a sense of humanity. This one guy came to chat to us after, because everyone's very social there, and even though they're living in very dire situations, like, I can't believe that we let refugee camps like that one happen in Europe. You know, we should be a lot kinder to people who are seeking help and are trying to get into our countries. That's my firm belief. Anyways, everyone was very nervous and very tense about what was going to happen. People were going to have fights, and instead what happened is, as soon as the film came on, there was just waves of joy going through these people. And this one guy came up to us afterwards and started speaking to us, and he said, look, I haven't seen a film in 11 years. Just imagine like what that feeling must have been for this person, you know. And it's important that we help people out with food and medicine and water. Obviously that's fundamental, but we need to remember that these people are people, and they've got needs which go beyond just the very basic needs. And culture is one of them. Culture is part of your identity. Culture makes up who you are. You know, if you've gone on a journey, you've left some war-ridden country, you ended up in Libya, where you might have been in prison, and finally get to France, which was supposed to be this beacon of hope and new beginning, and you're stuck in a refugee camp. And really, the stories that we've heard are absolutely insane. Stories about kids being beaten up. You see all these kids going around with like broken limbs, and it was the French police that did that. You know, it was people being beaten up by the French police, or stories of lost family. It's a really, really harrowing story. But for that one night, we had just a very beautiful common experience, and it's something that I'm very, very proud that we did with Secret Cinema. And it's amazing that I get to work with an organization that has a purpose beyond what is the commercial. Yeah,
I think that's awesome, and it gives them, for that moment, like you're saying, that feeling of identity. And I could just imagine, if I haven't gone to see cinema in a year, going to see one film would be so exciting.
Yeah.
So imagine what that's like across such a long time. Must have been magical. One of my favourite photos I've ever seen was for a photography awards, and it was taken on, I think, an iPhone 6S, and it was only last year. But the winner was this iPhone 6S photo, and it was of a refugee camp again, all coming together to watch a film.
Mm.
And I think there's something about filmmaking, kind of like when you used to, in the US, when you would go bowling every Monday with your neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's those moments of community
exactly.
that you can't recreate. And those memories just like everything we've talked about today, it's all about those memories that you can't snap with a photo. It's got to be, you've got to be there, and that will be what transcends anything. I think it's so important.
So important. And it's something that we've lost, you know, I truly subscribe to the idea that loads of people who, you know, we're living for a period in which we've got massive issues with knife crimes, we've got massive issues with gangs, we've got issues with radicalization, we've got issues with so many issues with the young people nowadays, you know. And I really believe that a lot of it is because we've taken away community spaces, we've taken away local cinemas, we've taken away places where these people can congregate and have a cultural outlet, or rehearse a band, or get together with friends and watch fun. You know, like these things are missing nowadays. And I think if we were a little bit, if governments effectively were a little bit more forward thinking in that, and were willing to take a risk and spend a little bit of cash on youth, then I think we wouldn't be having lots of the problems that we've got nowadays.
Yeah. Andrea, thank you so much for coming on today and just sharing your experiences and everything that's happened with Secret Cinema. I think it's been really enlightening to see what that whole organisation is doing and all the good work it's doing as well. So thank you so much for that and just telling your story.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for letting me tell my story, and you should all come to see it, you know.
Just do it. It's I agree. It's just the best thing in the world.
We've got Dirty Dancing coming up this summer, so if anyone's up for some watermelon shenanigans, get a ticket. Nice. Where can they find yourself or Cinema in general on social media, or what is that? Yeah, I'm on Twitter and Instagram, mostly Instagram, under Andrea Moccia, MOCCIA. But you can find Secret Cinema on all the social media platforms under Secret Cinema, or on our website, www.secretcinema.org. And that's where you can get tickets. Nice. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Thank you. Have the rest of the day. Thanks, dude. Thank you. That was great.
Everyone, thank you so much for listening to the very end of this chat with Andrea Moccia. If you've really enjoyed it, please do share it with someone else who you think might find this interesting. And yeah, if you could give us a review on iTunes, that really goes a long way. As long as it's 5-star, please do a 5-star one. That goes so much further than you can imagine to help reach other people who might not know about this channel. And like I said before, we have loads of work from the amazing creators we interview on our Instagram account @Creative Catalyst Podcast. So go check that out. And I'll see you next Monday.